Om Namah Shriyati Rajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. I offer my salutation at the feet of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sharda Devi, and Swami Chaitanandaji Maharaj. Just now, as he told, I have been receiving his love, affection for a long many years. Even before he came to America, when he was in India. I was a very young monk at that time, but I received a lot of love from him. And since then, whenever we meet, we have very good exchanges. This is my fourth visit to USA. But my first visit to St. Louis. So Swami Chaitanya, when I came here, Maharaj was not there. It was no use coming here without him. So, but this time, as soon as I told that I will be on my way back from the Parliament Religions, he immediately responded and said, no, you must come this time. And so I am here. I am very happy to meet all of you. I am extremely grateful to Revered Chaitanandaji Maharaj for giving me the opportunity of meeting you all this morning. And I take this opportunity of inviting you all to Gujarat. I have told Maharaj also to come and you also join. Gujarat has a special attraction because when Swami Vivekananda wandered all over the country before going to America, before coming here, he spent a very large amount of his time in Gujarat. There are many reasons. It is in Gujarat that for the first time he came to know that there is going to be a World's Parliament Religions in Chicago, in Gujarat. While he was traveling from Junagadh to Porbandar at night, for changing the train, he was at Jetalsal railway station. It is the assistant station master, Hargovindas Ajramar Pandya. He informed him that there is a Parliament religion going. That is, then the thought bombs that Swami Vivekananda threw in the World Parliament Religions, the whole gunpowder was prepared in Gujarat. That is, the thoughts of non-violence, the thoughts of harmony of religions. All these things, when Swamiji was in Porbandar as the guest of the administrator Shankar Paranu Pandit, he had a very huge library. Swami Vivekananda used to spend only 3 days everywhere, but there he spent 4 months because he fell in love with that big library. And there he enlarged his knowledge of scriptures. He also studied the Sanskrit grammar and also helped Shankar Paranu Pandit in translating Atharvaveda. And Shankar Paranu Pandit says, Swamiji, nobody will understand you here. You ought to go to the West. They will understand your genius. And when you go to the West, you will need to know French. So I will teach you French. And Swamiji learned French there, which was very useful when he came to the West countries. So whatever it is, Gujarat has got out of about 15 memorials that are there in the name of Swami Vivekananda, approximately. Out of which 3 are in America, Ridgely Manor, where I'm going to have a retreat on 24th. Then Thousand Island Park and South Pasadena, where Swami Vivekananda stayed and converted into memorials. Apart from that, there are 12 in India, out of which 3 are in Gujarat. 3. Limdi, the palace where Swamiji stayed, was handed over by the Rajmata to Ramakrishna Mission. Then the historic Bhojeshwar Bungalow, where Swami Vivekananda stayed for more than 4 months as the guest of Shankar Paranu Pandit, was handed over by the government of Gujarat to Ramakrishna Mission in 1997. And the historic Dilaram Bungalow, where Swami Vivekananda stayed as the guest of the then Diwan Manibhai Jashpai, was handed over by the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, now the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi himself came and handed over that bungalow in 2005. So we have 3 memorials there. So when you come, you reserve some time for these 3 memorials, apart from Dwarka, Somnath and Gir Loy and other so many things. And also now the Statue of Unity, the tallest statue of the world. Anyway, so I extend a very warm welcome and to Gujarat whenever you come, and we'll be very happy to make all the arrangements. Just as Ruben Maharaj told, I had been to the World's Parliament of Religions, the Parliament of World's Religion now, the name has been given, at Toronto from 1 to 7 November. About 10,000 delegates from 200 different faiths and from 120 countries, they had participated. And this time in the banquet dinner, a lot of things were discussed about Swami Vivekananda, which is a good thing. And for the first time in the history of the Parliament of World Religions, Diwali and Indian Heritage Month were celebrated in the Parliament of Religions. In the convention center, there was a hall, and I was told to give keynote address on Swami Vivekananda there. There was Goddess Lakshmi, worship of Goddess Lakshmi, and all the great religious leaders of Toronto were called, and we had Diwali celebration on 2nd November inside that convention center. So, what Swami Vivekananda said, that Indian spiritual culture will gradually penetrate various parts of the world and bring about that universal symphony, the universal brotherhood that is gradually taking place. As you know, the Illinois government declared 11 September 1893, Swami Vivekananda delivered his historic speech in Chicago. So the Illinois government has declared 11 September as Vivekananda Day by a charter. And Canadian government declared the November month, because Diwali falls there, November as the Indian Heritage Month. So all the things are taking place. That is a very good sign that Swami Vivekananda vision is coming up. Now the subject is Swami Vivekananda, a global leader for a global civilization. You see, the communication technology has undergone tremendous transformation, as all of you know. The distance have been annulled. The physical distance have been annulled. When Swami Vivekananda started from Bombay on 31st May 1893 for going to Parliament Religions, at the end of July he reached Chicago. It took 2 months for him because he came by ship. And now, morning you start from Bombay, noon you are there in New York. You see how much transformation has come. The distance has been annulled. Not only that, communication technology. Everybody has got mobile, internet. The whole world has been connected as never before. And they say it is a global village. Very good. And globalization come to stay, at least on economic front. But where is the global peace? Still we are not having global peace. So many strifes going on, terrorism and wars, bigger or smaller. Why? Because global civilization has not yet come. Globalization has come on economic front. Communication technology has undergone tremendous transformation. It has become a global village. But where is the global civilization? Without global civilization, global peace cannot come. And this is what Swami Vivekananda pointed out in his address on the welcome address on 11 September 1893. Unless until he says a goodbye to sectarianism, bigotry and fundamentalism, and unless until we stop bloodshed in the name of religion, unless until we have this harmony of religions, we will not be having a global civilization. And unless until we have global civilization, we cannot have global peace. So Swami Vivekananda was such a visionary who talked about the problems that we are facing today 125 years ago. And that is why we are now celebrating 125th anniversary all over the world of Swami Vivekananda's addresses in Chicago. Can you imagine? 125th anniversary of somebody's birthday? No. A speech. It is considered as one of this Swami Vivekananda speech, at least on 11 September, is considered one of the best speeches in the world history. So, this 125th anniversary of a speech is being going on. Why? Because the ideas that he gave are as relevant today? No, more relevant today. Dr. Federico Meyer, the then Director General of UNESCO, was asked this question, the relevance of UNESCO celebrating the centenary of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago addresses, when it happened on 8th October 1993, after 100 years. What is the relevance? UNESCO, at its headquarters in Paris, is celebrating the centenary of Swami Vivekananda's address. Then he told that Swami Vivekananda's address was very relevant at that time, and now it has become more relevant in the light of the present problems that we are facing. And then he also said, I was indeed struck by the constitution drawn up by Swami Vivekananda in 1897 for Ramakrishna Mission, with the constitution that was drawn up for UNESCO in 1945. What a visionary was. Whatever we are talking about UNESCO today or United Nations today in the international organizations, he is talking about it. He has made a declaration. He has made a low rule. Anybody wants to become a member of Ramakrishna Mission, whether lay or monastic, has to give a declaration in writing that all religions. And all the services are being done irrespective of caste, creed, color, religion, nationality. All those ideas that UNESCO developed in 1945, Dr. Federico Meyer said, I was indeed struck. And may I add, what Federico Meyer said in 1993, when we are celebrating 125th anniversary, it is still more relevant, because that 9/11 had not taken place. You know, Swami Vivekananda delivered his historic speech on 11th September 1893, that was also 9/11. And we did not listen to his message properly, so there was another 9/11. After 180 years, the Twin Towers broke. It was nothing but fundamentalism, because of which the towers went. So, now after this 9/11, Swami Vivekananda's message of harmony of religions, of saying goodbye to fundamentalism, has become much more relevant. So Swami Vivekananda is, and so if we really want a global civilization, we must have global leaders who will think about at a global scale, who will have a global heart, who will have a global message for the humanity, whose message will not be compartmentalized, whose message will not be limited to nations or communities or particular faiths. It has to be a broad message. And Swami Vivekananda is one of those rare leaders, a global leader for a global civilization which can bring about this global peace. We will just go through very quickly some few points. The global leader needs to have the concept of servant leadership. You know, Robert Greenleaf started this concept of servant leadership 1976. Now in the corporate sector it is very important. It is considered one of the best ideas for the servant leadership. But he started in 1976. He wrote a book on servant leadership, Robert Greenleaf. Now it is being very popular in the corporate sector. But you will be amazed to know Swami Vivekananda talked about servant leadership 125 years back. He said, Sardar, Sirdar, wahi Sardar. Who can become a Sardar? Who can become a leader? Who can sacrifice his head? Who can sacrifice his ego? Servant leadership is nothing but sacrificing your ego, sacrificing your selfishness, leading not by rice and by hook or crook, and not by hire and fire method, leading by example. That is servant leadership. And this was not only preached by Swami Vivekananda, but also practiced by him. You know, he started Ramakrishna Mission in 1897, not in his name, in the name of his master. And he did not become the first president. He made his brother disciple Swami Brahmanand his first disciple. He said, whatever my brother disciples say, I will do. If my brother disciples say, your job is to clean latrines of Bellumat, okay, I will do that. He practiced servant leadership with the result. On 4 July 1902, he chose 4 July because he loved America. So he wanted independence from his body also on the Independence Day of America. So 4 July 1902, at the age of 39 years, when he left his body At that time, there were only 5 centers of Ramakrishna Mission Mission. Now there are 225 official centers of Ramakrishna Mission spread all over the world, plus 1,000 non-affiliated centers which are run by our devotees, because we have shortage of monks. They are running it, but we have a functional linkage with them. Just imagine why it has grown so much. And not only in number of centers, but number of activities, so many hospitals, 14 indoor hospitals, 100 outdoor hospitals, 6,000 education institutions where 600,000 students are studying, rural and tribal development projects, many of them in India. Of course, in outside India, we have most of our work is related to spiritual development, but there we have more of service activities. And in some other countries also, Bangladesh, etc., we have more of service activities where they need it. Here you need more of spiritual activities. So there it's spiritual activity. But whatever it is, all this expansion has taken place. Why? Because Swami Vivekananda practiced, not only preached, but practiced this servant leadership. So, and this servant leader, this leader, global leader, has to have high SQ. Then only he can be an effective global leader. And Swami Vivekananda had that high SQ. Dana Zohar, she is a professor in Oxford University. She has written a book. The name of the book is SQ, Spiritual Intelligence, the Ultimate Intelligence, where she says neurologically, physiologically, biologically, psychologically. From every point of view, there is a concluding evidence. There is something called SQ, which is the basis of both IQ and EQ. What is IQ? Intelligence quotient will tell you how to play the game of life. What is EQ? EQ will tell you how to play the game of life under changed circumstances with changed strategies. And what is SQ? SQ will tell you whether to play the game of life at all or not. Well, that is your choice. What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? This will be told by SQ. Higher the development of SQ, higher is the person who is ready to sacrifice his life for others and able to make meaning in others' life also apart from his own life, because he has developed high SQ. So Dana Zohar says Swami Vivekananda is a rare leader with that practicing servant leadership with high development of not only IQ but EQ but also SQ. So now many of the thinkers now recognizing Swami Vivekananda as a global leader. And this global leader had a global heart. Because of he had a global heart, so that is why he was able to be effective in bringing out many more changes. It is the impulse, it is the extent to which he felt the miseries of the people in his heart. That's why he could, with a missionary zeal, go for removing it. What a beautiful heart, what a universal heart. On 9 July 1897, Swami Vivekananda wrote from Almora one of the best letters that he has written. Very inspiring letters, he has written many, but one of the very inspiring letters that Swami Vivekananda wrote on 9 July 1897 from Almora, written to address to Miss Mary Hall, where she says, "My dear Mary, I had to talk a lot about myself because I owed that to you. Now I feel my task is done. At the most, 3 or 4 years of life is left behind. I never wanted earthly enjoyments. I have lost all wish for my salvation. I must see my machine in strong working order, and knowing for sure I have put a lever for the good of humanity, which no power can yet drive back, at least in India. I will sleep without caring what will be next." He says in 1897, and he passed away in 1902. He says 3 or 4 years are left behind. He had predicted that. And then he says, this is most important, he says, "And may I be born again and again, and suffer thousands of miseries, so that I may worship the only God that I believe in, the sum total of all souls, and above all, my God the wicked, my God the miserable, my God the poor of all races, of all species, is the special object of my worship." Imagine what a heart. He went for universal salvation. He said, there was a time when I was very, very eager, mad for getting my own salvation, but now my heart has expanded. As long as a single soul is without, salvation, I will go on working for him. He said, it may be that I shall find it good to get outside of this body, to cast it off like a disused garment, but I shall not cease to work. I shall inspire men everywhere until the world shall know that it is one with God. Look at the universal heart, look at the global heart of a global leader. To what extent he is feeling. He is saying the main aim of life of every individual, the highest aim is mukti, but he is renouncing even mukti. No, I don't want my own mukti. I want everywhere. I want universal salvation. I want salvation for all. Even if a single soul is suffering, I'll be born again and again to remove that suffering. What a heart. And remember, his heart was more sensitive than a seismograph. I will just give one example. Swami Vivekananda was in Belur Math, our headquarters. If you have gone to Belur Math, you must see just behind the main temple of Sri Ramakrishna, there is a room on the second floor. And everything has been kept as it is. His bed, his cot, his chair, his table, his turban, his clothes, his stick, musical instrument. You feel as if Swamiji is still there. It is there. On 4 July 1902, he passed away. Swamiji was there at that time in this room. He was sleeping. It was about 2 o'clock, midnight. By the side there was a small room. There is a small room that even now you can see. In that small room, his brother disciple, Swami Vijnananandji, used to sleep. Now, at night Swami Vijnananandji felt that Swami Vivekananda not in his room and he is walking, strolling on the veranda that is facing Ganges. Then he said, Swamiji, why are you not getting sleep? Why are you strolling at this midnight? He used to tell him Passion, because his name was Hari Prasanna, so he used to call him Passion. I was deep asleep. Suddenly I got a jerk. A great shock has come to me. My heart has become I'm feeling too much pain in my mind. I think that some catastrophe has taken place somewhere in the world, and that has resounded in my heart, and I am feeling restless. I am not getting sleep. Swami Vijnananandji Maharaj said, what he is talking about? So in some corner of some world, some catastrophe has taken place, and he is feeling that shock, and because of that he is not going to sleep. He couldn't believe that. No, nothing has happened. You please go to bed. But next day he was amazed to find in the newspapers, exactly at the time when Swami Vivekananda got that jolt, at that very time there was a big earthquake and there was a volcanic eruption in Fiji Island, and thousands of people had died. And whatever happened there, more than a seismograph, that was recorded in Swami Vivekananda's mind. That was the universal heart. That was the global heart of Swami Vivekananda. And that is why we have yet to get such global leaders having such global heart. They alone will be able to make a transformation. And he is a universal inspirer. So many people he inspired when he was alive, and he continues to inspire. You know, when he came to Chicago, 1893, he had to stay on in America for more than 3 years for preaching the message of Vedanta, giving the nectar of Vedanta to the Americans. Of course, it's a different thing. Whatever he gave, we just packed it. The gift remains unopened. Elena Stark, she says, Swami Vivekananda gave a beautiful gift of 4 yogas and Vedanta, nectar and all that. He gave a beautiful box, but the gift remains unopened. And that is why our American youth are committing suicide and schizophrenia and affluenza and all these things have come only because the beautiful gift by Swami Vivekananda remains unopened. And he had beautifully said that Columbus discovered the soil of America, but Vivekananda discovered the soul of America. And he gave everything there, but it remains unopened. Whatever it is, he was there, and that time, the richest person of the world, John D. Rockefeller, the emperor of petroleum industry, He was going through a very bad patch. He had become emaciated, very thin. His hair had all gone. He had become bald. He was under terrible depression. Somebody suggested, why don't you go to my friend's house? A saint has come from India. Maybe by talking to him, you could get rid of your depression. Rockefeller said, what? I have to go to a beggar for getting advice? No, I will not go. You know, we are all beggars. We live on alms. So, he did not go. One fine morning, suddenly, he went to the place where Swami Vivekananda was staying. He called the bell, the butler opened the door. He went inside. Now, Swamiji was not in his drawing room. So, without being announced, he entered the study room. And as you know, Swami Vivekananda had tremendous power of concentration. He would do one thing at a time. He was so absorbed, he didn't notice Rockefeller coming. So Rockefeller stood for some time, and then he knocked at the table. Then Swamiji looked up. Rockefeller said, I am Rockefeller. Swamiji asked, what do you want? He was not prepared for this type of treatment. Rockefeller means the American president would get up, and here is the beggar sitting in his chair and asking, what do you want? He was very much annoyed. I don't want anything. Then Swami Vivekananda asked, then why have you come? Now he had no answer because he had come without invitation. Then Swami Vivekananda said, my dear Rockefeller, I know why you have come. You come here because you do not have peace of mind. And then he started narrating many incidents from his life which no one else knew except Rockefeller. And he became very much excited. Who has told all these things to you? How do you come to know? Swamiji smiled and said, do you think it is necessary? I can see through your mind as I can see through a glass self. Then he became unperturbed. He has come to know all my secrets. And then Swami Vivekananda told Rockefeller, my dear Rockefeller, remember, you are not the owner of your wealth. You are only a custodian of your wealth. Utilize this money for removing the sufferings of millions of people. Immediately you will get peace of mind. There is no other way by which you can get peace of mind. Rockefeller was very much annoyed. How dare you talk to me like this? And then he left abruptly as abruptly had come. But after a few days again he came, similar fashion. Called the bell, the butler opened the door. He went inside, Swamiji was not in drawing room, so he went to the study room. Swamiji was fully absorbed. Again he knocked at the table, Swamiji looked up. Then he put a piece of paper in which he had made an announcement of a very huge donation for a public cause. When he read it, Rockefeller said, now you must thank me. I have followed your advice. Swamiji said, well, it is for you to thank me. Because by following my advice, you will get peace of mind which cannot be purchased by billions of dollars in the market. That was a very huge donation. I do not know. I have yet to make research, but when I went to Chicago in 2010 for the first time, I went to the University of Chicago. There is a bust of Rockefeller, and that is told in 1894 he made a very huge donation for University of Chicago, by which the University of Chicago was revived. It may be that. This is my guess, whatever. But it was a very huge donation he gave. Not only that, in 1913 we know that he started Rockefeller Foundation. From that Rockefeller Foundation, so many researches have been done. David Borlaug made a research and found out a drought-resistant wheat which saved millions of people from starvation. So many researches have been done. And Rockefeller went on. He was at that point of death in 1894. And then he went on to live 98 years age. And he wrote in his autobiography, without giving the name of Swami Vivekananda, there is more to life than just earning riches. The real purpose of life is serving others. All these ideas you felt reflected in his autobiography, though he has not given the name of Swami Vivekananda. And today, Bill Gates is following the richest person. Now, up to last year, he was the richest person. Whatever it is, he is one of the richest person. And when he came to India, the newspapers, the reporters told, why have you come? He said, I have got a great respect for Indian culture. How? By reading the books of Swami Vivekananda. Have you read any book? Oh, I don't go to bed without reading a few pages from the books of Swami Vivekananda. When I read it, I couldn't believe it. Because at that time, the idea about Bill Gates was he believes in cutthroat competition. I'm talking about 20 years back. But afterwards, in 2000 year, he started Melinda Bill Gates Foundation. And $30 billion with that he started. And every year he is the person who donates maximum for charity. That I can understand. I wanted to verify. So I went to the website, but there no reply came. But there one thing is written, that he says, Bill Gates says, I was inspired for my philanthropy, I owe the inspiration from David Rockefeller. And David Rockefeller is the youngest son of John D. Rockefeller. And John D. Rockefeller gets his inspiration from Swami Vivekananda. So circuit is complete. Whatever way. But whatever it is, many people got inspiration. You know, so many of them, you read the book of Swami Vivekananda, so many people during his lifetime were inspired. And so many people, even from committing suicide, they were the famous singer, Madame Calvé. 4 times she went to the pond for getting drowned, and her feet took her to the residence of Swamiji, and then Swamiji gave her peace of mind. She was saved. So many incidents you will get, and that continues till today. Many leaders even today are inspired, not only in India, not only in America, many other countries, and they are all types, poor, rich, academicians, very highly illiterate, taxi drivers, or maybe scholars, historians. A.L. Basham was asked this question about what is the Swami Vivekananda's importance in the scale of history. In 1963, when centenary of Swami Vivekananda's birthday was going on, that time A.L. Basham, one of the greatest historians of our time, said, it is very difficult to evaluate the importance of Swami Vivekananda in the scale of history only after 100 years. The future generations will be able to understand his message and his contribution. We are too near the history to find out the impact that Swami Vivekananda has done. He was a visionary, a great visionary who could visualize the problem that we are going to face after hundreds of years. His message is not only for today or tomorrow, it's for the future hundreds of years. Through his meditation, he could come to know what are the problems that the civilization would be facing. And he has given the solutions to all the problems. Only what we have to do is to study those things which he got through meditation and the solutions. But he is an ever-inspiring Vivekananda. His message is very inspiring. We read his Roma Rola. He says about Swami Vivekananda's books, his words are great music, phrases in the style of Beethoven. I cannot touch these sayings of his scattered as they are through the pages at a 30's distance without receiving a thrill through my body like an electric shock. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, well, it may be Christians, it may be Hindus, it may be Muslim, any religions, people from all religions, from all faiths, from all countries, from various denominations, they all are getting inspired by Swami Vivekananda. I was traveling with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the former President of India, from Rajkot to Porbandar. I had invited him for inaugurating one of the 81 school buildings that we had constructed as a part of the earthquake rehabilitation project. So he inaugurated one of the schools in Porbandar. So we were traveling by car, and then he said, Swamiji, please tell something about Vivekananda. I told so many things. And he got so much interested that in the evening, when he was flying from Rajkot to Bombay, he saw me in the flight because I had to go to Benares. Swamiji, you are going by the same flight. I want to sit near you. Again, he sat down and said, in the morning you told so many nice things about Vivekananda. Please tell something more. Like a child. Then I asked this question, why are you so eager to learn about Vivekananda? He gave a beautiful reply. Swami, he says, Dr. Kalam said, Swamiji, I think Vivekananda is one of the rare saints who converted religion into practical spirituality. That's why I admire him. So, It is not only the Hindus or the Christians or Muslims, from all faiths, people have been inspired. So he is a universal inspirer. And he is a prophet of universalism. He talked about universalism. He talked about internationalism much before United Nations and World Health Organization and UNESCO were constructed, were started. Much later they were started. He talked about it in 1897, about universalism. But he based on his teaching, based on the principle of Vedanta. Two principles, fundamentally. The divinity of the soul, and second, solidarity of the whole universe. So the modern quantum mechanics is coming very close to the philosophy of Vedanta, where it says that the whole world is united. Bell's theorem states all the particles of the whole universe are integrated at a deeper level. David Bohm, a Nobel Prize physicist, has experimentally verified it. And that is why Schrödinger says consciousness is a singular, of which the plural is unknown. That is what Vedanta says, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma, Ishavasam Idam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat, Tena Taktena Bhunjita Mahagrata Kasasutana. Swami Vivekananda, based on this universalism, he gave his message of universalism, what we want. A time will come when the borders, all the borders will be broken between nations and between communities and between various religions. A global civilization has to emerge, and that will emerge based on this fundamental principle of Vedanta, of solidarity of the whole universe, which is in conformity with the latest discovery of the modern quantum mechanics. And then the whole world becomes one. And when that global civilization will come, then only we will have a global peace. So that is why we have to learn so much from the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda. And a lot of research is being going on, a lot of scholars are making research, so many case histories are there, but lot needs to be done still more. But I told this thing because I was told to give keynote address in that Diwali celebration on 2nd November. I told this very thing. We are yet far away from the implementation of Swami Vivekananda's teachings. And once we start, and I'm going to say this, from Toronto I went to Houston, there also told the same thing. Then I was in Boston talking to the Harvard University students and the Tufts University students. There also I have told the same thing, that we have to broaden our vision. And Chicago also, 2 lectures. And of course from here I'm going to New York and New Jersey. In New York, that's why I'm going to talk about from 9/11 to 9/11. If we want to avoid future 9/11s, we have to remember the message what Swami Vivekananda gave on 9/11 in 1893. So, I have just given a brief outline, that Swami Vivekananda is a rare leader, a global leader with high SQ, with a global message for humanity, with global vision, with a global heart, and a global inspirer, and a global background, and known globally, revered globally. In America, you find that you give so much respect to Swami Vivekananda, much more so than even in India. In America, they brought out a book, The 100 Makers of America. There also the name of Swami Vivekananda appeared. And even in other countries, they are now, as soon as they are knowing about Swami Vivekananda's life and message, they are becoming attracted. Whether it's a communist country, whether it's a capitalist country, socialist country, all are getting attracted to the message of Swami Vivekananda. So it's a very broad subject. I have tried to give a brief outline. I am grateful to Swami Chaitanya Ji Maharaj for giving the opportunity of meeting you all. And I offer my humble salutations once again at the feet of Swami Chaitanya Ji, at the feet of Swami Vivekananda, Shri Ramakrishna, Sharda Devi. I also bow down to the divinity which is present in all of you. Thank you very much.